The former NFL cheerleader who had sex with a high school student says she is now dating him publicly. Sarah Jones and Cody York spoke with NBC News about the scandal.
Do you feel guilty about what you did?
Yeah, what I did was wrong.
I didn't like being called the victim because I wasn't the victim. I wasn't a victim of anything. She never did anything to me.
Jones was a teacher at York's high school. York was 17 when they had sex, but as he just said, he never felt like a victim. In fact, he even told her that she looked beautiful in her mugshot. Jones pled guilty earlier this month to sexual misconduct and custodial interference. She's serving 5 years probation. Criminal defense attorney Dan Conaway with me now. So, she's 27, he's 17. She gets no jail time. Well, he's 18 now, but at the time he was 17. She gets no jail time for sexual assault of a minor, and she is not required to register as a sex offender. People do not understand this. Can you understand it?
Yes.
Why? Justify it for us, because at a time when we're seeing so many minors assaulted in so many ways, I think this is offensive to people.
There's a couple of issues here. First of all, there's the issue that apparently the victim's family and the victim came together and actually sided with the defense in this case and with the defendant. And therefore, they worked with the prosecutor to come up with an agreement that everyone liked, including the victim and the victim's family. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, has a lot to do with this case. I think that if the victim's family, mother and father and so forth, had not been behind a lenient decision in this case and a lenient punishment, then that would not have happened. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there are a couple of other issues here. One is the fact that he was 17. I think if he had been younger, that would have been a major difference. I think being 17, there's some sense, to give an example, in New York, the age of consent is 17. In Georgia, the age of consent is 16. And so I think there's a general understanding of the law that I think that reflects sort of general societal norms that somewhere north of 16, 17, 18, an individual has the right to consent to sex. And against that is this custodial issue. And that's really what's at the heart of this. And, you know, it's interesting because societally we've come a long way from where we were. I mean, this type of thing used to be just a joke, you know, in the 1970s and 80s. And before that, you know, the teacher that had a crush on the student had a crush on the teacher. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, nobody cared that much.
Well, because we didn't see stuff like this happening, probably.
Well, and you know, it's a different age with a lot more media out there, so that something that would stay in a small town and maybe be, you know, discussed around the coffee shop, for instance, is now all over the media. Sure. And so there's a response to that. And so the laws have changed. And the key issue here is the custody issue. And the basic idea is that when you're in a position of authority, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a psychiatrist, whether you're a teacher, whatever, a prison warden, same thing, that the individual whom you're making the advances towards does not have really free will in that situation because of the difference in power.
Right.
And that is a valid distinction. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what's driving this case. So what's driving this case, the way I look at it from a lawyer's point of view, is not so much this helpless child situation where this woman is just a predator and all that. Quite frankly, based upon the facts of this case, she doesn't appear to me to be a predator. She doesn't appear to be a predator at all, based upon this one isolated incident.
No, let me ask you this. What if she were a man?
If she were, that's a great question.
What if she were a man?
If she were a man, I don't know, quite frankly, that she would have gotten this deal. If if the roles had been reversed, there's definitely a certain amount of sexism in the law in this area, and it doesn't matter whether it's domestic violence or whether it's sex crimes. Whenever these certain types of crimes that we've really escalated as far as the severity of punishments for and stepped up prosecution of over the last generation or two, especially over the last 15, 20 years. These types of areas are areas where, quite frankly, we see as lawyers a lot of bias. If you're in a drug case, you always want the female person in the car. Because it's going to be like, oh, the poor girl in the car.
Yeah, I would say, are we just seen as more vulnerable? Or, you know, we act on our emotions as opposed to,
right.
Boy.
Same thing with this situation. The situation is, quite frankly, you know, okay, 27-year-old male teacher having an affair with a 17-year-old female student. Gee, you know, he's got a lot of power. He's clearly coercing all this. 17-year-old young boy with a, with a 27-year-old former cheerleader teacher, well, gee, it's like, well, maybe that's not so bad, right? Is that right? No, because you need to have equal protection in the law.
It's not right, but it's
it
how
happens.
it's seen. It's
It
okay.
happens.
Well, thank you for explaining. We appreciate you being so candid with us. Dan Conaway, as
Thank you.
always. Good to have you here.